Hello and welcome to Archaeologists Anonymous, your source for your quick archaeological fix. On today's episode, Akhenaten, the mad Egyptian Sun King and his crazy city. Let's dig into it. Alright, so as always, we gotta start with some historical background. Let me take you back to ancient Egypt. You know, you've got a bunch of different gods, you've got this priestly class who administrates all the temples of these gods, and they're pretty politically powerful. So we're talking about New Kingdom Egypt here, and look at that, you go New Kingdom Egypt, you conquered a lot. But then, along came my boy, Akhenaten. Although, if you let me spill some tea, I'll let you know what his original name was. So our boy Akhenaten used to be known as Amenhotep IV, which basically means Amun is satisfied. Amun is one of the Egyptian gods. However, this whole polytheistic god thing didn't really suit Akhenaten, so he changed everything to be all about one god, the Aten, which was just sort of the sun. As part of this, he switched his name to Akhetaten, which means servant of the Aten. So according to him, there was just one sun god. And that's the Aten right there. It's the disc in the top of that carving. It's still a mystery why Akhenaten went all in on the Aten like he did, because it actually caused him a lot of trouble. Firstly, it alienated the politically powerful priests of the old gods because their temples were effectively abolished with the new single god system. It also potentially strained his relationship with the public as a whole, since he uprooted their entire religion. So, why did Akhenaten do it? Some people think that Akhenaten wanted to shake things up with a new elite class. Since all the new Aten priests owed their existence to Akhenaten, he could be sure that they were loyal to him. So as part of this whole we're gonna cancel polytheism in Egypt campaign, Akhenaten made a new capital called Akhetaten. Yep, that's just as confusing as you imagine. Akhetaten means horizon of the Aten. The one with the extra T is the city, is how you remember it. So basically he decided to found a new capital city that from the ground up would be all about his new boy, the Aten. So where does he decide to put this capital? Well, in the middle of the desert. Yep, you heard me right, in the middle of nowhere. It was located on the Nile, but it was in like no man's land between Upper and Lower Egypt. This was a big city. If you overlaid the city on LA today, it stretches from downtown LA to Griffith Observatory to Dodger Stadium. So our boy Akhenaten has founded himself a big city. Akhenaten's city brings us to our second theory on why he made the switch to worshipping the Aten: legitimacy. Akhenaten's father had a long and successful reign, and he was known to be nicknamed the Dazzling Aten. Interestingly, Akhenaten was co-rulers with his father for a few years. Perhaps Akhenaten was hearkening back to his father's success to legitimize his authority as pharaoh. He may have actually, in a way, been worshipping his dead father through the Aten, though it is hard to tell since we have so few sources about him. Founding a city for the Aten gave the new religion legitimacy too. The fact that Akhenaten built such a big city dedicated to the Aten so quickly would show that the Aten already had a physical presence in Egypt. And he fills his city with art of the Aten. But more than just the Aten, he fills it with a very interesting new art style that he's been working on. So ancient Egyptian art really doesn't like changing. You know, like they found a good stance of like, so they sort of stuck with that for a few thousand years, but Akhenaten wasn't satisfied with, so he went with a completely brand new art style. We're gonna switch it up here. Let's make this all about me and my new god, the Aten. So he starts making art like this. Now, you'll start to notice that this art is actually pretty androgynous. Like, he gives himself a lot of traditionally feminine features, like wide hips, ample chest, and he also gives himself these long, spindly limbs and this sort of pear-shaped body, and he's got this sort of like long face. So there's a bunch of questions. Archaeologists are like, why'd he do that? And there's a bunch of different theories. One is that he had some sort of like physical disorder, like Marfan's syndrome or something like that, and that his body actually looked like that. But we found Akhenaten's body and he doesn't have Marfan's syndrome. Another theory, which I tend to like the most, is that Akhenaten was trying to portray the androgynous nature of the Aten, because he sort of refers to it as this sort of both mother and father goddess in a way, and that it sort of created all of the world from itself. So I think he's reflecting the androgynous nature of his god, the Aten, in his statues. Or maybe my boy Akhenaten just wanted to look androgynous. We don't know.
It's so hard to tell what Akhenaten was thinking, again because we have so few sources. This brings us to our final theory as to why Akhenaten decided to change the religion, and it's genuine belief. Among all of the Egyptian politics and symbols of legitimate rule, it seems likely that he was an ardent believer. As with anything archaeologists study, there were probably several reasons at once that explain why he did it.
Alright, so besides the fan art of the Aten filling the city, what else was in there? What else was different about this Aten theme park of a city? Filling Akhetaten were temples to the Aten, which, not surprising. However, there's something weird with these temples. They were filled with thousands of offering tables, and the idea is that food brought into the city to feed people would have to be blessed by the Aten first, which in practice means set up on an offering table in the baking desert sun for hours. Yeah. So for the record, I would not want to live in Akhetaten.
I mean, for real, look at all of those offering tables they had to build to fit all the food.
These temples also made major breaks from the classic ancient Egyptian temples, because the classic ancient Egyptian temples are sort of dark and covered because they think of the Nile as the source of life, and so they've got to be like dark and underground like a river. The new Aten temples, however, see the sun as the source of life, so they're totally open air, no roofs, big wide courtyards, so that you can be blessed by the Aten just like the food.
Akhenaten did something just like his temples with the layout of the city. In the old belief system, the east of the Nile was associated with life because that's where the sun would rise, and the west of the Nile was associated with death because that's where the sun would set. Tombs would always be on the west of the Nile because that was the side of the dead. Akhenaten changed all that. Here is a map of Akhetaten. You'll notice that the royal tombs are to the east, in the direction of the rising sun, or Aten, and not in the west, which was a major change from how it used to be.
So you can imagine that my boy Akhenaten's let's throw out thousands of years of tradition thing didn't go over well with the locals.
In around 1336 or 1334 BC, after a 17-year reign, Akhenaten died, and here's his sarcophagus. Once he died, Akhenaten suffered the fate of damnatio memoriae,
which basically means, let's just forget that ever happened. So, people chiseled his name out of monuments. They were like, never happened. Let's just forget about that whole Aten fiasco. Here you can see where they've chiseled out his name.
Akhenaten's son, Tutankhaten, came to power as Egypt switched back to its old polytheistic religion. To symbolize commitment to the change back, the name Tutankhaten was changed to be Tutankhamun, though you might know him better as King Tut. In the process of damnatio memoriae, the city of Akhetaten, the symbol of legitimacy of the Aten, was targeted. And so, the city of the mad Egyptian Sun King got dismantled block by block, and only small fragments of it remain today. Like that one. So that's Akhetaten, the ill-fated city founded in the middle of nowhere, where all the food was baked in the sun. Akhenaten is one of, if not my favorite Egyptian pharaoh, just because of how wild this story is. That's the end of today's episode. Thank you for watching. Please watch another video, like and subscribe, and... Akhenaten, you really moved into the desert. Akhenaten, they chiseled out your name post you. Worship the sun, do-do-do-do. worship the sun, temples with no roofs.